Hi folks, my name is Mr. Kuchak and I am your art teacher. Before we begin, let me go over our class rules. We have 3 rules at Elk Lake. Be ready, be responsible, be respectful. We are ready in the art room when we come in, sit in our assigned seats, and get quiet so that we can learn about art. We are responsible in the art room when we follow directions and take care of our supplies, and we clean up any of our messes. We are respectful when we use kind words like please and thank you, and when we value other students' artwork. Supplies you will need for today's lesson. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to. Hi folks, today we are going to go over our next art element. So far we've gone over lines and shapes and value. If you haven't done those 3, you're going to need to before you get into today's lesson, which is form. Forms are 3-dimensional shapes. So a shape normally has length and width. So those are 2 dimensions to it. And that's why we say that those are 2D. And with our forms are 3-dimensional. So they have length, width, and depth. So it kind of looks like they go back into the picture. It's almost like an illusion where they look like they're a little bit more than the shapes themselves, or that they can kind of shrink as they go back. It's one step in drawing something realistically. Now I'm going to show you some examples of 3D forms, and then we'll get onto our paper. We'll sketch those out, and then we'll shade right on top of that. So let me move my camera, and then that way you can see what I'm drawing. Okay, so with our forms, what we're after is, we can take our basic shapes. So our basic shapes of a circle, of a square, of a triangle, and you know what, let's even throw a rectangle in there, because it's one that we've used before. So what happens is, besides the change in its appearance, we also call it something different to differentiate the fact that it is 3-dimensional. So the circle then becomes a sphere. And to make a sphere, what we do is we draw out our circle. Once we have our circle, our front edge, we do a curve, and then our back edge, we do a dashed line. So then that way it's going to look a little bit more rounded. What this helps us do is it helps us shade. So if I have my sphere, then my front edge up here, this is kind of where the highlight's going to be. Over here it's going to be a little bit darker. Now of course I can't use a Sharpie on that, so if I press, I'm going to press really dark away from that kind of center spot, and then I'm going to get a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter until I get to there. And then I can even do a dark edge way over here, just so that we keep that kind of highlighted and looking 3-dimensional. And there's another way that you can do your sphere too, where if you just draw out your circle, and if you take a pencil and you say, okay, I'm going to leave the middle kind of white, and around the edges, that's where I'm going to start a little bit darker. So I can go around the edges, and then I can just keep getting lighter and lighter and lighter as I get to the top. And what that'll do is that will make it look a little bit more rounded too. Our cube. With our cube, we start off with a square, and then we have to do kind of like another cube behind there. So sometimes you'll see people draw like another kind of L or 7 shape behind it, and then they'll draw a line down and a line over and do a dashed line to show where it is, and then they'll connect the sides together. What that does is it gives you a nice kind of opened cube there. What we can do when we're shading it though is if we draw out our cube, and then we do our 7, and we connect and connect and connect, whoops, Then what we can do is we can make each side its own color. So the front, you may want to keep as like a number, let's say, if we go back to our value scale, like a number 3. So we can do that one kind of like a light or medium kind of tone. The top, I'm going to do kind of dark here to kind of hide that little extra line that I put in there. And in that way, it looks like it's dark, light, and medium, and you start having our 3 main tones of dark, light, and medium, and you start getting a little bit of shading going on there. The triangle can actually become 2 different things. If you do the start of your triangle and you do a curve, it's going to look like a cone. If you do your triangle, whoops, and then you add another side, then you're going to have more of a pyramid or wedge shape. So then you have your light is going to be over here, and then you're going to have your medium and dark. So I'm going to do a little bit more dark on this side, and I'll do some medium kind of right here. That will help us make it look the same way. Now with the cone we normally do one dark side, and then just like we would do with the sphere, we get a little bit lighter, and then we bring just a little bit into the bottom too, so that we can kind of make that stand out. The rectangle becomes 2 different things. It could be a slab. So a slab is kind of like a sheet of paper where it's flat. I like to think of like a sheet of plywood with this. So if we do the bottom with an L and then connect, that will give us our 3-dimensional triangle. The front I'm going to keep light, and then I'm going to do a dark side here. I'm going to really press with my pencil. I'm trying to hit like a number 6, and then I'm going to try to do a very light kind of number 3 or so on that side. We can also start off with a cube, and then we kind of come back, we come back, we come back. Then we're going to do an L or a 7 shape, and that will give us more of what we would call a bar. So with the bar, I'm going to do medium here on the side. I'm going to keep the top kind of light, and then I'll do darker over here. And what those let me do then is it lets me do a little bit of shading. So if that white is just too much, just go over it with a tiny little bit. Like if we go back to our value scale. So if we go back to our value scale and we are looking at it, our number 1 value is pretty much what we want to do for a light. It just breaks up that white paper. It lets us get in there. Remember, we don't want to be streaky in there. We don't want something like that where we can see every single line. Value is nice and smooth. It's not a line. So it's almost like you're coloring it in with gray, but you have to color it in completely. So it's got to be filled in all the way. Now, with these kind of forms here, what we're going to do is we are going to go back to our picture that we did last time. So we did this picture where we had our value scale right in there. And why don't we go down to the one that's right below it? This way we can follow along kind of easily right here. And we're going to make that one right there our forms. And so draw out. Let's draw out a circle. Let's draw out a triangle. I'm going to do a pretty big one, and I'm going to try to get it to go behind the circle by not drawing part of the circle, or not drawing part of the triangle. And then I'm going to also do a square over here, kind of all by itself. You can add the other shapes that we talked about. So, if you wanted to do a cone shape too, you could do that, but just start off with a rounded bottom on the triangle. So let's work on getting these 3-dimensional. So I'm going to draw my cube, or I'm sorry, my sphere part where I know now where the lightest part is going to be. I just need to erase a little bit of that. I also have my cone, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that dashed line so that I can see where it needs to go. I'm going to have my pyramid come over, and that part's going to come up to it. And then I'm going to have my cube that's going to be over here, and I'll connect, connect, connect. And then I will say that maybe the sun is right up here. So if the sun is up here, that means the brightest part is going to be here, and the darkest part is going to be down near the bottom. So I'm going to start with my number 6, really pressing with my pencil. Really press with it, and then start getting a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter. And make sure we fill that in. If it got streaky on you, just go back in, smooth it out, not with your fingers. Don't take a piece of paper either and blend it out. It's all going to look the same then. So what you want to do is just nice and smooth. Same thing here. It's going to be brighter on top. So I'm actually going to erase a little bit of that line because it's in the wrong spot. So it's going to be brighter on the top, and it's going to be darker on the bottom. So once again, I'm going to hold my pencil sideways. I'm using the side of my pencil here the whole time. I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm going nice and slow, and I'm just trying to go through my values. I'm lifting my pencil up a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. Remember, pressure is how much force you're putting down on the pencil. So you start off with a lot of force, and then you get lighter and lighter. Now, when it comes to something like the wedge shape or the pyramid shape here, then we know, okay, it's going to be lighter there, it's going to be darker here, and then it's still going to stay pretty dark, but it's going to get lighter up near the top. But because it has that clear side to it, it's going to be a little bit darker there. And then, same thing, I'm going to do it a little bit darker here. And then I'm going to get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. Once I have that done, then I'm going to come over to my cube. And with my cube, the top part is actually going to be the lightest part because the sun is shining there. The side will be the darkest spot then. And I'll make that really, really dark. I'm going to fill that all the way in up to the top. And then this one's going to be a medium. So I'm just going to press a little bit lighter, and I'm going to get that filled in all the way. So then that way we have our shapes, and they look like they're shaded. Something else you can do if you want to make it look like it's on a table or it's on something, you can just draw a little bit of a ground line on there, and then once you have that, you can just add a little bit of a shadow underneath. So it doesn't have to be anything too big, but if you put a little bit more of the shadow underneath, it'll make them look a little bit more real. So I'm just going to add a little bit shadow, kind of dark, right underneath it. Make it look like the sun is casting a little bit of a shadow there. So I don't know if you can see that. Let me zoom in a tiny little bit. And then this way I have my shapes, I have my forms, and then I have my values. So we're going right from our value scale here, and we're doing it right underneath. So our number 6, if we count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 6 right here at the bottom. Our number 3s, 1, 2, 3, are our medium tones. So those are going to be in the middle. And then our lightest tones, our 1s, are going to be pretty close to the top. And then where it is at the top, we're also going to leave a little bit of that white because the sun is shining down on top of that. So try that out and see how that works for you. If you get stuck and you're looking for other resources for this, you know, a value scale or shading tutorials are great videos to watch on YouTube. Shading forms is something great to search for too, because it'll show you exactly how all of this is done. So have a great night. Thank you very much.